I never thought I'd be telling this story, but here we are. The day my world tilted on its axis and spun into chaos began like any other Tuesday in Boise. The early Idaho summer heat was just beginning to gather its strength, a warm promise on the breeze. I was at the firm, finishing a structural analysis for a new downtown project, the satisfying click of my keyboard the only sound in my focus bubble. For 4 years, this had been my life, predictable, stable, and good. Clara and I had been engaged for 8 months, with the wedding planned for a crisp weekend in October. Just enough time, she'd said, for the leaves along the river to turn that perfect shade of fiery gold she loved for photos. We met 3 years ago at my buddy Seth's 4th of July barbecue. She worked in marketing at the same tech company as his wife. From the moment I saw her laughing by the cooler, something just clicked. It wasn't a thunderbolt, but a quiet, profound recognition. She had this way of tilting her head when she smiled that made her honey blonde hair catch the afternoon sun. And her eyes, a deep and thoughtful green, seemed to see right through all my carefully constructed defenses. 2 years of dating, one knee dropped on a hiking trail overlooking the Boise River Valley, and suddenly we were planning a life together. Our apartment was filled with her scented candles and my architectural books, a perfect blend of our two worlds. Everything was perfect, until it wasn't. Looking back, the signs were there for weeks. Small tremors before the earthquake. Clara had grown distant. Her phone, once a casual accessory, had become an extension of her hand, clutched like a talisman. When I'd enter a room, she'd quickly flip it over or lock the screen with a flick of her thumb. The woman who once fell asleep with her head on my chest, her soft breathing a lullaby, now rolled to the far side of the bed, claiming she was too hot to cuddle. I'd wake in the middle of the night to find a cold, empty space between us. Our conversations became shorter, more practical, revolving around bills, wedding vendors, and whose parents we'd visit for the next holiday. The easy laughter that had first drawn me to her, the sound that felt like home, seemed to have evaporated into the dry Idaho air. "Everything okay, babe?" I'd ask, my voice laced with a concern I tried to keep casual. "Just work stress," she'd reply, her eyes fixed on her laptop. "The new campaign launch is driving me crazy." I believed her. Or maybe, more accurately, I wanted to believe her. We all go through phases, right? Relationships have their ebbs and flows. That's what my married friends always said. You weather the quiet seasons to get to the good ones. So I resolved to be more patient, more understanding. I decided I would be the anchor until her storm passed. That Tuesday night, I left work with a plan. I was going to break through the wall that had been slowly rising between us. I stopped at the market and bought 2 beautiful cuts of salmon, asparagus, and a bottle of the crisp Pinot Grigio we'd discovered on a weekend trip to Oregon's wine country. I was going to recreate one of our best memories. I thought maybe a nice dinner, a taste of a happier time, would help her relax, help us reconnect. When she came home, the apartment was filled with the scent of roasted garlic and lemon. Soft music played from the small speaker in the kitchen. She seemed surprised, offering me a quick, tight-lipped smile. "This is nice," she said, setting her purse down. "I thought we could use it," I replied, handing her a glass of wine. But as we sat down to eat, the familiar distance returned. She picked at her food, taking small, hesitant bites of the salmon I'd grilled perfectly. She took small sips of wine and kept glancing at her phone, which lay face down on the table beside her plate like a sleeping viper. Every few minutes, it would vibrate softly, a secret tremor only she seemed to feel. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I put my fork down. "Clara," I said, my voice gentle but firm, "what's really going on? And please don't say it's nothing or just work stress again." She sighed, a long, weary sound that seemed to carry the weight of the past few weeks. She set down her wine glass with a deliberate motion and finally met my eyes. Her green eyes, usually so vibrant, were clouded with something I couldn't decipher. "Elias, you know I love you, right?" Any sentence that starts that way never ends well. My stomach tightened into a cold, hard knot. "Of course," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And I love you too." She twisted her engagement ring, the one I'd spent 3 months' salary on, the one she'd cried over when I slipped it onto her finger. "Before I met you," she began, her voice barely a whisper, "there was someone else." "Rowan," I said, "your ex from college. The musician. I knew about him. She'd mentioned him a few times, a passionate, tempestuous relationship that lasted through her junior and senior years. It ended badly when he chose his band's cross-country tour over moving with her to Boise." "Yes," she said, taking another long sip of wine. He's back in town. His band broke up, and he's working at the Sapphire Room now, tending bar. The Sapphire Room was a popular jazz club downtown where we occasionally met friends for drinks. I hadn't noticed any new bartenders, but I wasn't exactly paying attention to the staff. Okay, I said slowly, waiting for the rest, sensing there was much more to come. I ran into him last month at the grocery store. We talked for a bit. He asked for my number. She was speaking faster now, as if getting the words out quickly would make them less damaging. We've been texting, just catching up at first. But my hands felt cold despite the warm evening. But what, Clara? She took a deep breath, the kind you take before plunging into icy water. Elias, I want to be with you. I want our life together, our wedding, everything we've planned. But there's this unfinished feeling with Rowan, like we never had proper closure. Closure? I repeated the word, feeling it turn strange and alien in my mouth. What kind of closure are you looking for exactly? That's when she said it. The words that would detonate the foundation of our life together, leaving nothing but rubble. I want to be with you, she said, her eyes pleading, desperate for me to understand. But I need to sleep with my ex one last time, to end that chapter properly, so I can come to you, to our marriage, whole and without any doubts. The salmon turned to ash in my mouth. I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. People don't say things like that to their fiancés. They just don't. You want my permission? My voice was surprisingly calm. A thin sheet of ice over a raging ocean to cheat on me? Before we're even married? It's not cheating if you know about it, she said, as if this logic made perfect, rational sense. It's just getting the past out of my system so I can fully commit to our future without any lingering doubts or what-ifs. And if I say no, she looked down at her plate, unable to meet my gaze, then I'll respect that. But I'm afraid I'll always wonder. And eventually, that wondering might turn into resentment. So there it was, emotional blackmail wrapped in pseudo-psychological babble. Sleep with another man, or risk our entire future being poisoned by her unresolved curiosity. I stood up and walked to the window of our apartment, looking down at the street below where normal people were living normal lives, not having conversations about their fiancés sleeping with exes for closure. When I finally turned back to face her, her eyes were a mixture of hope and guilt that made my stomach churn. In that moment, something inside me shifted, broke, and rearranged itself into something harder. I saw her. I really saw her. Perhaps for the first time. This wasn't the woman I thought I knew. This was someone else entirely. Take all the closure you need, Clara, I said, my voice even and devoid of emotion. Her face lit up with relief. And something else, excitement? Had she actually been worried I might say no? Really? You understand? She breathed, standing up and coming toward me with open arms. God, Elias, this is why I love you. You're so mature, so secure. I took a step back, and her arms fell to her sides. I'm going to stay at Seth's tonight. I need some space to process this. Her smile faltered. But you said it was okay. I said you could do it, I clarified, my voice like ice. I didn't say I would watch you get ready for it. I need some air. I grabbed my keys, wallet, and phone and headed for the door. Elias, wait, she called after me. Shouldn't we talk more about this? What's there to talk about? I said without turning around. You've made your choice clear. Now I need to make mine. I closed the door behind me before she could respond, the soft click echoing the sound of something breaking forever. In the hallway of our apartment building, I leaned against the cool wall, trying to steady my breathing. My phone buzzed with a text from her. I love you. Please understand this isn't about us. I switched it off and drove to Seth's house, my mind a blank, roaring void. She said, what? Seth nearly spat out his beer. We were sitting on his back deck, the night air thick with humidity and the chirping of crickets. His wife was out of town, so it was just us and a six-pack of a local IPA. Closure, I repeated, the word tasting like poison. That was the word she used. And you said yes? Are you insane? Seth had been my best friend since high school. He'd seen me through my parents' divorce, my first real heartbreak, everything. He was the brother I never had. I didn't exactly say yes. I corrected him. I said she could take all the closure she needed. Same thing, man. Same damn thing. He shook his head in disbelief. You can't let her do this. This is some manipulative bullshit she's selling you. I know, I said quietly. The initial shock was beginning to recede, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. But the moment she asked, something died inside me, Seth. I realized I don't even know who she is anymore. Seth leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. So, what's your plan? Because you better have a plan. I do, I said, pulling out my phone and turning it back on. The screen lit up with missed calls and a dozen texts from Clara. I ignored them all and opened my contacts. I'm going to call her dad. Seth's eyes widened. Leland? Military Leland? The guy who said he'd personally rearrange the face of anyone who hurt his daughter? That Leland? The very same, I said, and pressed call before I could lose my nerve. Leland Williamson answered on the third ring, his gruff, no-nonsense voice immediately putting me on edge. Elias, everything all right? It's nearly midnight. No, sir. Everything is not all right, I said, straightening my posture even though he couldn't see me. I need to talk to you about Clara, and I need you to hear me out before you react. 20 minutes later, after I had carefully explained the situation, Leland was silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. Sir, are you still there? I'm here, he said, his voice tight with controlled fury. And what exactly do you want me to do with this information, son? This Saturday night, I said, my own voice steady and cold, Clara is going to tell you and Mrs. Williamson that she's staying at her friend Paige's house. She's not. She's going to be at Rowan's apartment. He bartends at the Sapphire Room and lives in those new lofts on 5th Street, apartment 3B. And why are you telling me this instead of handling it yourself? It was a fair question, because if I confront her, it becomes another fight between us that she can twist or explain away. But if her father catches her in the act, I let the implication hang in the air. Another long pause. Then, 3B, you said. Yes, sir. I'll take care of it, he said. And Elias, this doesn't mean I won't hold you responsible for your part in this mess if my daughter ends up hurt. Understood, sir. After we hung up, Seth handed me another beer. You're playing with fire, man. Maybe, I said, but I'm already burning. The next few days were an exercise in acting. I returned home the following morning to find Clara making pancakes, her specialty whenever she felt guilty. She approached me cautiously, searching my face for signs of anger. I was worried when you didn't come home, she said. I needed time to think, I replied, accepting the plate she offered. But I meant what I said. If this is something you feel you need to do, then do it. Relief washed over her face. You're really okay with it? I want you to be happy and free of doubts when we get married, I said, the words tasting like bitter ash in my mouth. If this is what it takes, so be it. She threw her arms around me. You're amazing. I promise, after Saturday, it's all about us. No more past, no more Rowan, just you and me. I hugged her back stiffly. The charade had begun. While she was at work on Friday, I methodically packed up most of her belongings. Her clothes, toiletries, framed photos, her collection of candles, everything went into boxes that I stored in the spare bedroom closet. I called a locksmith and had the locks changed. I called our wedding venue and canceled the reservation, forfeiting the deposit. The task of dismantling our future was grim but strangely liberating. With each box taped shut, with each call made, I felt a piece of myself returning. That night, I lay beside her in bed for the last time, a stranger staring at the ceiling as she slept peacefully, dreaming of a future that no longer existed. Saturday arrived with a knot of tension tightening in my stomach. Today was the day my fiancée would attempt to sleep with her ex-boyfriend with my supposed blessing. The day her father would catch them. The day everything would shatter. Clara spent the morning at a spa with her friend Paige, a pre-planned girls' day that now seemed like a convenient preparation for her evening rendezvous. When she returned, she was glowing, relaxed, and freshly manicured. She spent the afternoon getting ready, taking an extra long shower, and spending twice as long as usual on her makeup. I sat in the living room, flipping through channels without seeing anything, waiting for the inevitable. When she finally emerged from our bedroom, she was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, a tight, dark green number that left little to the imagination. Her hair was styled in loose waves, her lips painted a deep red. You look nice, I said flatly. Special occasion, she said, having the decency to blush. Elias, I know this is weird. If you've changed your mind, I haven't, I cut in quickly. Have you? She shook her head. Number, I need this. For us. Then go get your closure, I said, turning my attention back to the television. Text me if you'll be late. She hesitated by the door. I love you, she said softly. I looked up at her, this beautiful stranger I had planned to spend my life with. Drive safe. After she left, I poured myself a whiskey and waited. The clock on the wall seemed to tick with exaggerated slowness. I tried not to imagine what was happening, Clara arriving at Rowan's apartment, him greeting her at the door, the awkward conversation giving way to reminiscence, but the images flooded my mind anyway. It didn't matter. Whatever happened tonight, we were done. That decision had been made the moment she'd asked the question. My phone rang at 9:17 p.m. It was Leland. "It's done," he said without preamble. "What happened?" I asked, my voice hoarse. I showed up at the apartment like we planned. Knocked on the door. "That piece of work, Rowan," answered wearing nothing but a bathrobe. Clara was inside, shoes off, wine poured. There were candles lit. My stomach clenched. I didn't say a word. Just stared at both of them until Clara started crying. Told her to get her things, that her mother and I would be waiting in the car downstairs. "She went with you?" "Of course she did," Leland said gruffly. "She's not stupid, just foolish. She knew what getting caught meant." "She'll be heading your way soon, I expect," he continued. "Her mother thinks she should face you. Take responsibility." "I agree." "She won't like what's waiting for her," I said. "No," he agreed. "I don't suspect she will." After we hung up, I went to the spare bedroom and began bringing out the boxes. I arranged them neatly by the front door, a cardboard wall between our past and her future. Then I sat on the sofa and waited. It was nearly 11 p.m. when I heard her new key fumbling in the new lock. The door opened slowly, tentatively. When she saw me sitting calmly in the living room, surrounded by her boxed-up belongings, her eyes widened with shock, then narrowed with rage. "What is this?" she demanded. "Your things," I said simply. "Most of them, anyway. Whatever I missed, you can arrange to get when I'm at work on Monday." She stared at me, uncomprehending. "You're breaking up with me because of tonight?" I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "No, Clara. I broke up with you the moment you asked to sleep with another man. Everything since then has just been closure." Her face crumpled. My dad showed up. "Nothing even happened. Rowan and I were just talking. In his apartment, with you dressed like that, and him in a bathrobe." I gestured to her outfit. "Come on, Clara. Don't insult my intelligence on top of everything else." "This is crazy," she said, pacing in front of the boxes. "You set me up. You told me it was okay, and then you sent my father to spy on me. Who does that?" "Someone who wanted to see the truth," I shot back, my voice finally rising. "The truth is that I was honest with you. I could have cheated behind your back like most people would, but I respected you enough to talk about my feelings." "Your feelings about wanting to sleep with your ex?" I yelled. "And you expected me to what? Thank you for your honesty?" "I expected my future wife to understand that asking for permission to cheat is still asking to cheat." We stared at each other across the living room, the chasm between us now impossibly wide. "So that's it?" she asked, her voice smaller now. 3 years together, and you're throwing it all away over something that didn't even happen." "But it would have happened," I said quietly. "If your dad hadn't shown up, you would have slept with Rowan tonight. Can you honestly tell me you wouldn't have?" She bit her lip, unable to meet my eyes. That was answer enough. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked after a long moment. "That's not my problem anymore," I said, the coldness in my own voice surprising me. "Call Paige, call your parents. Hell, call Rowan, but you can't stay here." She stared at me for a long moment, then her expression hardened. "Fine," she said, gathering what was left of her dignity. "I'll go to Paige's. But this isn't over, Elias. When you calm down, you'll see that what I asked for wasn't so terrible." "Some mistakes can't be forgiven," I said, "and some shouldn't be." She grabbed her purse and walked to the door, stepping around the boxes of her life. "You'll regret this," she said, her hand on the doorknob. "Maybe," I conceded, "but right now, all I feel is relief." The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like the end of the world and the beginning of a new one. The next morning, I woke to a pounding on my front door. It was 7:30 a.m. on a Sunday. I peered through the peephole to see Paige, Clara's best friend, standing outside with her arms crossed, her face set in a scowl. I opened the door with a sigh. "You're a real piece of work, you know that?" she said, pushing past me into the apartment. Her eyes widened at the wall of boxes. "Wow, you really went full nuclear, didn't you?" "Did Clara send you to get her stuff?" I asked, closing the door. "No. She sent me to talk some sense into you," she retorted. "She's a wreck, Elias. She cried all night." I shrugged. What did she expect? She expected the man who claimed to love her to understand a momentary lapse in judgment. She expected forgiveness, or at least a conversation before you packed up her entire life. A momentary lapse in judgment is buying shoes you can't afford, Paige, I countered, my voice level. Planning to sleep with your ex while engaged to someone else is a fundamental betrayal of trust. But she didn't go through with it, Paige exclaimed, throwing her hands up in exasperation. Because she got caught, I pointed out, not because she changed her mind. Paige paced my living room, shaking her head. I don't get you, Elias. You've always been so reasonable. What happened to the guy who forgave Clara when she accidentally erased your big client presentation? Or when she maxed out your joint credit card on that shopping spree last Christmas? Those were mistakes, I said, walking to the kitchen to make coffee, needing something to do with my hands. This was a choice, a conscious decision to betray everything we supposedly stood for. This isn't about rules, Paige. It's about respect. And Clara showed me she has none for me or for our commitment. End of story. She loves you, you idiot. Paige followed me, her voice pleading now. People who are in love sometimes do stupid things. They get confused. That doesn't mean the love isn't real. Maybe her love is real, I conceded, measuring coffee grounds into the filter. But it's clearly not enough. Paige sighed heavily, defeated. Fine. You want to throw away the best thing that ever happened to you? That's your business. But don't expect her to wait around while you figure out what an idiot you're being. I don't expect her to wait at all, I said. A strange look flickered across Paige's face. Just a flicker. But it was enough. Wait, I said, putting down the coffee pot. Is she with him now? No, Paige said, too quickly. She's at my place, like she said. You're lying, I realized with a sickening certainty. She went back to him, didn't she? After leaving here last night, Paige looked uncomfortable. It's not like that. She was upset. She needed someone to talk to, and she chose the guy she was planning to sleep with. I finished for her, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Perfect. Just perfect. Don't judge her, Paige said defensively. You pushed her away. What was she supposed to do? Oh, I don't know, I scoffed. Maybe go to your place like she told me she was going to? Or her parents? But sure, running into Rowan's arms makes total sense if this was really just about closure. Paige had the grace to look embarrassed. Look, it's complicated. She's confused. You broke her heart. That's rich, I said, my patience gone. Tell Clara she can come get the rest of her things tomorrow. I'll be at work from 8 to 6. The building manager will let her in. That's it? That's all you have to say? That's all. Paige shook her head in disgust and stormed to the door. You'll regret this, Elias, she said, echoing Clara's final words. The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone with the smell of fresh coffee and the bitter taste of confirmation. I had been right all along. This wasn't about closure. This was about rekindling something she'd never fully let go of. My decision, as brutal as it felt, had been the only one I could make. A week later, I received a call from Clara's parents. Mr. and Mrs. Leland Williamson wanted me to come over for a talk. Clara won't be here, Leland assured me. This is between you and us. Curiosity got the better of me. That evening, I drove to their stately colonial house, a place where I'd spent countless holidays feeling like part of the family. Tonight, it felt like a stranger's home. Leland greeted me with a firm handshake, but his eyes were filled with a deep sadness. His wife, Eleanor, gave me a tight, emotional hug. Oh, Elias, she whispered. I'm so sorry. We sat in their formal living room, the silence thick with unspoken grief. First off, Leland began, clearing his throat, I want to apologize for my daughter's behavior. What she did, what she planned to do, was wrong. We raised her better than that. You don't need to apologize for her, sir, I said. Clara is an adult. She made her own choices. Yes, she did, Eleanor agreed sadly. And now she's continuing to make poor ones. She then told me that Clara's claim of staying with Paige had been a lie. She had, in fact, been with Rowan ever since she left my apartment. We need you to understand something about her history with that boy, Eleanor said, her voice trembling slightly. When Clara was in college, her relationship with Rowan wasn't just unhealthy, it was destructive. He was manipulative, possessive. She changed while she was with him, became someone we didn't recognize. She never told me that, I said, surprised. She was ashamed of how she let him control her, Leland interjected grimly. When they finally broke up, we were relieved. We thought she'd dodged a bullet. And then she met you, Elias. A respectful, ambitious man. You brought our daughter back to us. Until Rowan came back to town, Eleanor finished. We're worried, Elias. She's falling back into old patterns. She's not just upset. She's already making excuses for him, blaming herself, blaming you. My heart ached for them. Two good people watching their daughter self-destruct. She's going to make an even bigger mistake, Leland said, his jaw tight. She's moving to Nashville with him. She already put in her notice at work. They leave in 2 weeks. The news hit me with unexpected force. Clara, the practical, career-focused woman I knew, throwing it all away to follow a bartender to chase a faded music dream. It was a version of her I couldn't comprehend. They asked if I would talk to her, to reason with her, but I shook my head. My part in her life was over. A few days after that difficult meeting, I received a text from an unknown number. This is Rowan. We need to talk. Meet me at the Sapphire Room tonight at 8. The audacity was breathtaking. I almost refused, but a morbid curiosity won out. I wanted to see the man who had been willing to sleep with my fiancée, the man she had thrown our future away for. At 8 p.m., I walked into the bar. Rowan was behind the counter, all practiced smiles and artfully tousled hair. He was handsome in a restless, brooding way. He finally approached my end of the bar. Elias, he said, extending a hand I ignored. Thanks for coming. What do you want, Rowan? He sighed. Fine, I'll be blunt. You need to take Clara back. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. Excuse me? You heard me, he said, leaning closer. This thing with me and her, it's not working out. Never was going to. But she's too stubborn to admit it, and now she's talking about moving to Nashville with me, and I can't. And this concerns me how? I asked coldly. Because she doesn't belong with me, man, he said with genuine frustration. She belongs with you. The steady guy, the future husband, the picket fence. That's not me. Never was, never will be. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice dangerously low. You were willing to sleep with my fiancée. Now that you have her, you've decided you don't want her, so you're trying to pawn her back off on me? He had the decency to look embarrassed. It sounds bad when you put it that way. It is bad, I snapped. Then a thought struck me, a final piece of the puzzle I didn't know was missing. Tell me something. The whole closure idea, that was you, wasn't it? Rowan winced and avoided my gaze. We ran into each other, he mumbled. Things got flirty. She said she was engaged, happy. I told her about this friend of mine whose fiancé let him sleep with his ex one last time. Said it made their relationship stronger, because there were no more what-ifs. Obviously, he added, finally looking at me with a flicker of regret, I made the story up. And she believed it, I said, a strange calm settling over me. She wanted to believe it, he corrected. She was looking for an excuse. I just gave her one. The revelation should have made me angrier, but instead it just confirmed everything. Clara hadn't just made a mistake. She had actively sought out a justification to betray me. So what now? I asked. Talk to her, he pleaded. Make her see that running away with me is a mistake. No, I said, standing up. My life is here, but hers is no longer with me. Clara made her choices, Rowan. Now she has to live with them, and so do you. He reached under the bar and slid a small velvet box across the counter. Her engagement ring. She left it at my place. Thought you might want it back. I stared at the box, the symbol of a promise now broken beyond repair. Keep it, I said, pushing it back toward him. Sell it. Consider it payment for showing me who Clara really is before I made the mistake of marrying her. I threw down enough cash to cover my drink and walked out. For what it's worth, he called after me. I really am sorry. I paused at the door but didn't turn back. If that's true, I said, then do the right thing. Break things off with her cleanly before she uproots her entire life for you. She deserves at least that much honesty. As I walked out into the cool night air, I felt lighter than I had in weeks, as if the last invisible thread tying me to Clara and this whole sordid mess had finally been cut. 2 months passed. October arrived, painting the Boise foothills in brilliant strokes of gold and crimson. The day that would have been our wedding day dawned clear and crisp. I woke up feeling strangely peaceful. The hurt hadn't disappeared completely. I doubted it ever would, but it had dulled to a manageable ache, a scar reminding me of a lesson learned rather than a fresh wound. I spent the morning hiking, breathing in the cool autumn air, feeling the beauty of the world settle back into place around me. That evening, Seth and his wife insisted on taking me out. "You are not spending tonight alone," Linda had declared. They took me to Vincenzo's, the best Italian restaurant in town, a place Clara and I had saved for special occasions. When I arrived, it wasn't just them. A small group of our closest friends were gathered at a large table. It was a "we're glad you didn't marry her" celebration disguised as a casual dinner. I was touched by the gesture, a quiet act of solidarity that meant more than words. The evening was exactly what I needed: good food, better company, and conversations that had nothing to do with my failed engagement. We were midway through dessert when my phone buzzed with a text. I ignored it, but when it buzzed twice more in quick succession, I excused myself to check. 3 messages from a Nashville area code. My stomach tightened. "Elias, it's Clara. I got your number from Paige. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to talk to you. Please." After all this time, what could she possibly have to say? I returned to the table, distracted. Later that night, back in my quiet apartment, I decided to respond. Not for her, but for me. I needed to close this chapter completely. "What do you need to talk about?" I typed. Her response was almost immediate. "Can I call you?" Number. "Just say what you need to say." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. I made a huge mistake, Elias. All of it. Rowan, Nashville, everything. It was a disaster from the start. "I'm coming back to Boise next week. I was hoping we could meet." I stared at the message, a strange mix of emotions washing over me. Not satisfaction, not vindication, not even anger. Just a profound sense of distance, as if I were reading about a stranger's life. "No," I replied. "Whatever you need to say, you can say it now." Another long pause. Then the words I knew were coming. "I miss you. I love you. I know I hurt you in the worst way possible." But I was confused and stupid. Nothing with Rowan was real. Not like what you and I had. "I want to come home. To you. Home to me." As if the last few months hadn't happened. As if she could just slide back into the life she'd discarded so carelessly. "That's not possible," I wrote, my fingers steady. "What we had is gone, Clara. You need to accept that and move on." "Please," she texted back instantly. "Just one meeting. One chance to explain, face to face. That's all I'm asking. People make mistakes, Elias. Terrible ones. But they can change. I have. Please give me a chance to show you." I thought about it. I truly did. I pictured her sitting across from me, her green eyes filled with tears. I pictured the apologies, the promises. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that a part of me might still respond to her. But what then? Could I ever truly trust her again? Could I build a future on a foundation that had been so thoroughly shattered? The answer was no. "I'm sorry, Clara," I finally responded. "But the answer is no. I wish you well, but we're done." Her reply took nearly 10 minutes to arrive. "I understand. I don't blame you. But I want you to know that loving you is the best part of my life, and losing you is entirely my fault. I'll regret it forever. Goodbye, Elias." I read the message twice, then set my phone down on the counter without responding. There was nothing left to say. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and looked out the window at the quiet city lights. The woman I loved, the future I'd planned it, was all gone. But somewhere beneath the lingering sadness was a seed of something else. Pride, maybe, or self-respect. I hadn't crumbled. I hadn't compromised my own worth to keep someone who clearly didn't value what we had. The pain was real, but so was the freedom. I had found my own closure, not in another person's arms, but within myself. And for the first time in a long time, I knew with absolute certainty that I was going to be okay.